Hello.
You're the first one here.
Well, I had to do it when I had a good place to stop on the road.
Yeah.
So there was a nice clear stretch of roadway where nobody was gonna want to pass. So
Yeah.
I'm sure Isabel will be there soon, and I should be home in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I do not like zooming on my phone, so.
I have never done that.
Well, I have a holder in my car, so I can make calls. I have for calling people that I'm in my car. So that's also the time I talk to my. So we'll just wait as long as Isabel is not there. There's no reason to call us to order.
No. Have you confirmed if, I was going to ask if you've confirmed on Penny?
No, I didn't confirm. I just told her to not come. Yeah,
No,
she was
she
feeling
just-
bad.
she just showed up.
Well, hopefully bad.
You're breaking up pretty good, Cheryl.
So if I could be there.
This says that you have stopped me being able to share my video. That's okay. I don't need to share it today, but just wanted to tell you.
Well, that's. So it says I made you a co-host.
There. Okay, we're good now. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, Cheryl.
Are you better?
Yeah, somewhat. My head still, it's a bad headache, but Dayquil helps.
Good. So I'm almost home. I'm in my car right now. And we're waiting for Isabel anyway, because I believe she's coming.
Yeah, she just got here.
Okay. I'm only a half mile away.
Hello, everybody.
So,
Hello. So Isabel, I'm pulling into my driveway right now.
Okay.
You want to chair the meeting and let me just tag along for a minute?
Sure, I can start if you don't mind.
Yes, please. Then we will play things out.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and start this executive committee meeting of the Solid Waste Management District Board. Tom, would you like to call the roll?
sure. Munson,
Yeah.
Piedmont Smith,
Here.
Githens,
Here.
all are present.
All right, and I did take a look at the executive committee meeting minutes and made a few revisions, minor revisions. I believe they were all minor. Did you see that, Tom? That was in the Dropbox file.
I have not had a chance to look at it, but I'm pulling it up now. Make sure that I have those. And yes, I have those and I see the changes, so.
Okay. Are there any comments or other revisions from Penny or Cheryl?
I didn't get a chance to look at them. I'm sorry, Isabel.
That's all right. Cheryl, any comments about the executive committee meeting minutes?
No, I do not.
Okay. So shall we entertain a motion to approve those?
So move.
Second,
Okay, Tom, go ahead.
John Smith,
Yes.
Githens,
yes,
Munson,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, the Board of Director meeting minutes. Tom, what's the update on those?
I now have a working Word document, but it's the original one that Connie sent me. Something happened while I was making edits and the file got corrupted. And I couldn't do anything with it, and Connie was out last week, so I couldn't get her to resend it. So she did send it this morning. I do have that, but I did not get a chance to do anything with it today. And I mean, if the committee feels that there's something pressing in there, we can work to review them and go through it over email, or we can just hold them off until next month. Certainly would not be the first time. It took an extra month to get minutes approved, and I don't see that there would be any issues with doing that. So
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't mind waiting. Penny, Cheryl, any problem with waiting on those minutes for next month?
not from me.
I think that's fine.
I apologize for technical difficulties, but that's the second time in 2 weeks that's happened to me with a Word document. So,
Yeah, I hope it wasn't a lot of extra work for you.
well, I've made it through about half of it with reviewing things and making changes and edits, and lost all of that, but it is what it is. So,
Ay, ay, ay. All right, so the next item is report from the controller, but we
And
don't have
lemon
one
if
this
you
time,
can.
right, Tom?
well, yeah, Kathy had a conflict and could not be here, but she did give me an update to pass along.
Okay.
And that is that this kind of relates to something that we'll get into on agenda item 5. But we've previously talked about setting vendors up for electronic payment, and she is going through all of our active vendors and identifying those that seem to have regular recurring payments and similar amounts. And so she's working to identify those vendors that might be appropriate to set that up with. And then the next step would be to reach out to those vendors and ask them on their end, are they set up for electronic ACH payments? And once we get through all of that, then we will have something to bring back, for the board to look at, to consider doing some sort of a pre-approval for electronic payments on those vendors when they're due. She's also working with German American Bank to see how the ACH transactions work on their end when we move forward with that, and also exploring options with them on what they can do to set us up at Hazmat to be able to take debit and credit cards.
Oh, for the South Walnut Street for hazmat materials?
Yeah, since that's where all of our fees generate out of. So, but we get lots of inquiries from people, and if they're like me, they rarely carry cash and don't know where a current checkbook is. The debit or credit card works a lot better. So we'll try to get that set up for people. But those were the two things that she forwarded me to report to you on. So that's what we have.
So will we have all this in time for the next general board meeting, or will this be something that'll come up in April? Yes.
I'm thinking April, and like I said, we'll get into a little bit more of the detail about that when we get to agenda item 5. I'm kind of lumping that stuff.
That's the next item, so we can merge right into
Oh, it
that.
is, yeah. Well, let's Cheryl's trying to get back in, so let's get her
Yes.
back in.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
There she is.
Hello,
Cheryl,
I'm
I pass the
back.
gavel back to you.
Oh, no, continue on, Isabel. I don't have the agenda open, please.
Oh, well, we were going to go into item 5, which is about the check signature authority. So I guess, Tom, if you want to start us off with that discussion, then Cheryl can get her documents open.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it's kind of as indicated in the memo. Kathy and I weren't real clear on where the committee stood with regard to providing staff or delegating to staff that authority to sign checks. And if so, what parameters, limits, dollar amounts we want to put on staff doing that. But would like to get a determination on that, because I think that in April would be a good month where we could bring a handful of resolutions to the board where we would deal with the check signature authority. If that's what we want to look at, we can do the resolution that'll be necessary to set up pre-approval for those electronic payments, so they can just happen when they're due and then be brought to the next scheduled board meeting for formal approval. And then whether or not we do staff signing checks, part of that review, we've already identified some revisions of the internal controls policy that are needed, some typos and things like that. So we'll have a revised internal control policy, potentially a resolution regarding delegating check signing authority to staff, as well as a resolution to allow for ACH payments to selected vendors as approved by the board. So I'd kind of like to, I guess, get a clear direction from the executive committee on where you sit with staff signing checks. Unfortunately, Mr. Baker is not here, but the last meeting, he didn't legally see any issues with staff doing that, provided we could get the internal controls modified, to reflect that happening and still maintain adequate checks and balances for the disbursement of funds from the district. So, I just, wasn't sure, Ms. Munson is now 2 or 3 times has come to the office to sign checks. How that's working is that, if you're comfortable with that and that's working, and when we get our bi-weekly cycle more established and consistent, it's only every other week. So we weren't sure if the board or if the committee was still interested in looking at staff signing checks, or if we think that reducing the number of checks with electronic payments as well as the frequency to bi-weekly, if you felt that it was I guess efficient or satisfactory for the board chair or whoever is designated on a given week to come to the office to sign checks.
So I'll weigh in because I've been going into the office to sign. And well, I can do this, and it's something I can do. I worked this out with Tom, that as soon as the checks, as soon as the email is sent by Kathy out to the board members, the checks are ready to be signed. So I have Wednesday and Thursday to get in there to sign. And if necessary, I could also do it Friday morning. So that's a big window for doing that. Nonetheless, it still takes some time. And I think what we see, what happens with the biweekly checks and with the non-check payments, direct to bank payments, might reduce the number of check signatures a lot. So I'm comfortable just doing this until we see how it goes. What do you think, Isabel?
I just wanted to clarify, the email from Kathy goes out Wednesday, but then don't we as board members have until Thursday noon to ask questions and
Yes.
approve or indicate we
Right.
don't,
Yes.
if silence means we approve, basically.
Mhm.
And
And the checks are not sent until after the Thursday noon.
right.
Okay, so
yeah,
you
the-
could
the-
sign, but then if one of us has an issue, it could be held.
Absolutely.
I
Right.
see.
In order to produce that docket that you see to review, to ask questions or approve claims, the checks have to be printed. That's how that docket gets produced. So that we have the checks in hand when that email goes out.
Mhm.
And they can be signed whenever. And if there's a question or, for some reason, the board doesn't want to pay a claim, we can just hold that check till it's approved. We can void it, destroy it, just because the check is printed and signed doesn't mean it has to get distributed to the vendor.
So I guess my, first of all, I think it's good that we got rid of the stamp, right? It used to be a stamp of Cheryl's signature. And I was not comfortable with that. I'm glad we're not doing that anymore. But I am a little hesitant, even though Cheryl's president now, and she's fine with signing those checks. There may be a president in the future who cannot drive out there to sign checks.
Right.
And
not only
me,
that,
for example, I don't have a
You
car
can't
during
do
the
that.
day. So
absolutely.
I'm a little concerned about that possibility.
I
And
am
I don't want to
too.
limit who can be president, based on their movability and mobility to get the check signed.
And Cheryl might want to go on vacation occasionally.
Nah.
Definitely.
What's that?
So I'm just thinking it will be a very difficult election in future years to get someone to be chair if they have to go in and sign, 20 checks every other week or 30.
Well, I guess I would offer that it's something, if there's, it's something that can be done at any point in the future or rescinded at any point in the future.
Yeah.
If there's hesitation amongst the committee or even amongst other board members when it gets brought to them, we don't have to. It's not something we have to do now. And if circumstances change in the future, we can readdress it. Or if it's something that we want to move forward with now and circumstances change in the future and we no longer want staff signing checks, it can be rescinded at any time too.
Well, I think I recall that there was some discussion at a board meeting. Penny, I'll get you just a sec. To the effect that there should be some limit on the check, the amount the check could be signed by staff. Does anybody else remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So do any of you recall what that number was?
Well, at one point in time, I did provide the committee with a draft revision to the internal controls. And I threw $50,000 in there, which was a placeholder more than anything. But when we reviewed that, we got into the discussion of, well, what amounts are regular recurring checks? And, we do have the monthly health insurance premium is $26,000. The Republic Services bill is getting up, to $29,000, $30,000 range. And that's a monthly bill. So unfortunately, it needs to be a relatively high number,
It does.
or something we're going to have to consistently address as inflation and the cost of doing business increases over time. But that number would be, totally at the board's pleasure. And one thing I do know that Kathy didn't have in her controller report that she is also working on, that we talked about before, is getting a list of those vendors, that we've identified, that, it would make sense for staff to be doing checks on a regular basis for and signing, and looking at the past 6 to 12 months payments to them to give the committee and eventually the board an idea of the range of payments that we face on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and see where the board wishes to set those limits.
Okay. So Penny, do you want to say more?
I just wanted to say one thing. We could go ahead and authorize something, but build a sunset date into it so that it has to be reauthorized, whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now, so that we don't forget whether or not we want to revisit it.
That's a good idea.
And it may make sense to put that in there in the January, February timeframe. So when you would elect new officers, we're readdressing that issue.
And have new members to the board. That would be good. So do you want to try and come up with a resolution for us to look at next month's meeting, and then be ready to move it on to the board then? Oh, Isabel, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
In regard to the dollar limit, I wonder if we can make a distinction between recurring payments, such as Republic Services or the health insurance, and one-time payments, and allow staff to sign above, let's say, $10,000 for recurring payments, but not above $10,000 for one-time payments. And I'm just throwing 10,000 in there as a placeholder.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that there is, but I would want to work with Mr. Baker on what that language would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound like a good idea to?
I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
So recurring, non-recurring, and sunset are two elements to talk to Lee about.
Okay. And then in answer to your question, Ms. Munson, I think for the next executive committee meeting, and then the April board meeting is a good time frame to look at getting these issues, resolutions addressed.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay. Are we wrapped up regarding check signing?
And that gives me the information I was looking for.
Good. Is it Isabel?
Well, I just wanted to mention, I have been in communication with, I think her name is Ashley Stinson at German American Bank. And I did give my signature to various things so that I'm a backup signer. I didn't hear back from her after my last exchange, but I think that I'm either already a backup signer now or on my way to being one. So just for your information.
So
Well,
we should all know that that's the case.
Well, and I think Kathy has, I know that I think she sent an email to Ashley Thursday or Friday asking for the status of Ms. Githens and Piedmont Smith's signatures on the accounts, and had not heard back as of when she left today. So Ashley may be out of the office, or, I don't know. But we have inquiries about that for the status of that as well, so.
Okay. But that's very good. I don't want to be the only signer. So I think we're ready then to move to the MOU with City of Bloomington Utilities. And that's Mr. McGlasson telling us more about this.
There's not a whole lot more to say. I mean, the MOU is in there. We at least did get permission to attach the actual proposal as an exhibit to the memorandum. But Mr. Kelson just kind of called me out of the blue one day and said that he was working with their attorneys on an MOU, and that basically asked me if I thought 50% was a reasonable figure for them to seek. And I said, it's not my call. You know, you can propose whatever you want, and the board may counter. I don't know. But so that in essence is what the MOU says, is that we'll pay 50% up to the maximum total cost that's of 129,220, which is what is in the proposal. So that's what we have.
129,220.
$129,220 is I forget exactly how it is stated in that proposal, but I think it says that is a maximum. It could come in under that.
Well, no, it says that if there's a change that they could come back to us and ask for more, but that the City of Bloomington Utilities would be primarily responsible for it if they're the ones that ask for additional information or whatever.
Right. I was thinking back, not in the memorandum, in the proposal itself, I thought it said costs not to exceed the 129 figure.
Right. Unless, so there's sort of a caveat in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always caveats in that stuff. Oh, no, here it is. It says on page 18 of the packet, number 4 pricing, completed for a fixed fee of 129,220. So.
Okay.
So that is, they just worded the MOU that if it's less than that, we are 50%.
But on the bottom of page 11, number 3, it says that we shall each be responsible for paying half of the cost, not to exceed that, but any additional costs that may be incurred through any change orders, blah, 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 blah. So it could be
Right.
more.
Well, but number 3 also says that CBU will solely bear those costs.
Right. Unless they come to us and we approve it. So.
Right.
But, you know, that's what we have. You
Yeah.
know, I didn't feel that I was in a position to try to negotiate with Mr. Kelson on a different percentage or a dollar amount. This is what
Without hearing from the board.
Right.
This is what this is what I have for the board to consider. So. You know, it's fine. The board can accept it. The board can counter it. The board can just say we changed our minds. That's either, you know, any of those 3.
What's the timeline? When do they want a response from us?
He did not say, and that was not in here. I mean, I did tell him that, you know, when he called, that if he got it to me, that we could have it reviewed by the board at their March board meeting, but obviously that did not commit to a decision in that time frame.
Right.
Well, the original timeline starts in January, right? And we're already way past that.
Yeah, we're
Right.
already.
That's easy.
Yeah, and
Wasn't there, and I see Joseph Winnie is on the call. Wasn't there a desire by the CAC to discuss this? And maybe Joe can clarify whether that was to discuss before we commit money for this, or whether it was to discuss the outcomes.
I can say that I had the impression that the intent was to discuss prior to the board's decision, but there wasn't I guess a direct, clear statement stating such. That was sort of the implication that the intent was to be part of the conversation before the decision is made.
Mhm.
Right. So but the CAC hasn't seen the proposed scope yet, have they?
They have not. This
Well,
would, the
well,
distribution
okay.
of this packet would be the first, I think,
Yeah.
inclusion of it.
Okay,
They all got this
So-
packet, so.
okay. So we're looking for a joint meeting, and that's later on in our agenda. But one option that seemed to mesh with, that had the most greatest participation by CAC members, was for the April meeting being a joint meeting. But that's harder for the CAC to actually discuss, I think, at a joint meeting. Maybe they would prefer to do that themselves. But that would kick the joint meeting further down the road, I believe.
Oh, the CAC, now that it's in this packet and they all have it, the CAC could discuss it at their March meeting and
Oh.
then be prepared at a joint meeting in April to discuss with the board.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I would prefer to wait to respond to
full-
CBU until after we've had that joint meeting.
Yeah. So if they're asking about when, it would be probably at the April meeting, after the April meeting.
You can't rush the wheels of democracy.
No, and I think that's fine. I mean, you know, they're the ones asking for us for something, so they can let us do it on our schedule, or they can go a different direction. So, and I think that's fine. I think that gives the CAC adequate time to review and prep themselves for a discussion with the board. I get my question then would be for the March board meeting, do we want to include this in there so that the board has it for their whatever discussions that you want to have in March, and also for that month to review before the joint meeting with the CAC where it would be a discussion topic?
So I think so.
Yeah,
Isabel Penny.
But I also,
Also, there may be more information that board members would like to know too. And that may come out at the meeting, or it may come out after the meeting as people are looking into this this type of facility.
and I do have some questions, like, will this be, if there's composting there, will this facility be in direct competition with places like Green Camino? Which would hurt local businesses. And right now, the City of Bloomington utility charges folks that live outside the city limits a premium, an extra cost. And so I feel like those residents are being asked to pay twice if we pay for half of it. So,
how do you figure that?
well, where do you think the taxes come from that support the Monroe County Solid Waste District?
From residents of Bloomington and outside of Bloomington and Monroe County?
Right, so they're being asked to pay more to support this because they pay a higher rate. That's
Well,
what
they
I'm
pay
saying.
a higher rate because it costs more to give them the service.
Yeah. But we don't tier it within the city in terms of how far we are from any of these things. So I'm saying, yeah. But I also had a question about timeline, and I know that that'll depend on when we start, but it also looked like if it were pushed back, that it might go into a different year even, because there was something about that I didn't understand about only certain things could be looked at. Was it cattle something during a specific time of year?
Well, I mean, I think that those questions, those points, I mean, that's, all the more reason to have the board discuss it in March. And, if we can get Mr. Kelson or Mr. Schroeder from CBU to attend that meeting, they can hear all of the comments and all of the questions and, and maybe be prepared to provide a response or be at the April meeting or the joint
say
meeting with the CAC and address some of those questions and concerns that were raised. I think that
Yeah.
justifies the timeline even more so.
Mhm.
One thing that kind of unrelated, but I don't know that it's been discussed or how many of you are aware. You talk about the competition with the compost and stuff. Kevin Huntley, who owned Green Earth Composting, passed away unexpectedly a month or so ago. And at this time, the family has decided not to continue to operate Green Earth composting. They are working with Fable Farms to work with the material that they have there, get what's composted moved on, and what's not composted, get it composted so that it can be sold or moved on to somebody that can use it. But at this time, it does appear that the Green Earth composting is going to be no longer.
Okay.
So
there's only Good Earth and Earth Keepers at this point?
yes.
Yeah, from talking with Andrea and Ryan from Earth Keepers, I think they, they're a small operation, and I don't think they could accept a lot more, like the scale of organic materials that could be accepted if we create a biodigester at Blue Chip Pool. And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you've volunteered with them in the past.
The only thing I would have to add is that I would have to know what the rough biodigester numbers are to be able to determine how that compares. I know that the Earth Keepers capacity could be up to 1/3 of the Monroe County food waste generation estimates produced by the Kessler report, provided that there were access to the technology to do so. So it would require facilities changes, so not presently, but potentially.
And I think one of the other things, and it'll be good to have, Ryan and hopefully he can attend the joint meeting with board and the CAC, as he is one half of Earth Keepers. But the other thing too that I think you have to look at is, I don't think the digester wants everything that Green Camino or that Earth Keepers wants and takes.
Right.
The digester, and then Mr. Kelson kind of said it, when they was at a meeting or two ago when he was there, they're looking for the fats, oils, and grease, and it's not that the Earth Keepers can't or won't manage that stuff, but I think they look more for the table scraps, the leftovers after you've made a meal, and not the, lack of a better term, the waste products of preparing that meal, which is your fats, oils, and grease. So on the front end, and depending on how, what happens with Earth Keepers growth and involvement over time, but, initially, I don't know how much competition there's going to be for feedstock on the front end of that. Now, Ms. Gisson's questions earlier, what I thought maybe you were also asking about on the back end of that is there competition to sell the soil that we're producing, and that one I don't know. There could very well be. From my experience, when I hear CBU throwing out terms like land application, that's a much larger scale than buying a 50-pound bag of topsoil or compost from Earth Keepers. But that's not to say that there wouldn't be some crossover there as well. And that would be something, I'd be interested in Earth Keepers' take on that.
Penny? Oh, Penny, we
Sorry.
can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Cheryl and I have a hard stop at 6 o'clock. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yes,
Well, good. I wasn't looking forward to another 2-hour meeting, so.
I wasn't either. So, okay, well, we're moving this on to the March agenda.
Joe had a question, I think, comment.
Oh,
I'd actually have a comment if I may.
yes,
I just wanted to point out that in the document that was provided in the packet, that there is within task 2, the feedstock market analysis, gathering information about competition, including compost facilities. So that would actually be part of the analysis.
mhm. Okay, Isabel,
Like everything we do, especially if we have a new initiative like this, we should look at our 5-year plan and put it in context of our priorities in our 5-year plan. So maybe when we put this on the agenda for the March board meeting, we could, provide that context.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's also an opportunity cost. Like if we spend the 64,000 here, we can't spend it somewhere else. So we need to consider all those things.
Penny,
And given the amount, I wonder if this was actually put out as a request for proposals, or, was any competitive bidding done on this?
don't know.
I don't know, but I mean, that would be a public process, so we should, be able to do some internet searches and find the notices, where they sent out the request.
Well, maybe Mr. Kelson can just provide us with that.
Yeah, she should
As
be
part
able
of-
to tell us.
Do you want me to ask Mr. Kelson and or Mr. Schrader to be in attendance at the board meeting?
I was wondering about that, or would it be more efficient for us to gather questions and then relay them,
Mhm.
like say, send all your questions by March 20th or something, and then relay all those so that they're ready for the April meeting. I don't know. I don't want to waste their time. I want to be efficient with everybody's time.
I would like to actually have them there to answer some of these questions, like if it wasn't a competitive process, maybe we should be putting it out for bid before we, consider this.
I imagine that there will be points raised, questions raised that they'll know the answer to right off their head, right there at the meeting. And then there'll be other things raised that they'll have to research and get back to us on.
Well, I think that board members will have other questions once they really look into this and start doing a little research on their own about biodigesters, and they'll come up with additional questions. So I'm thinking, yes, March meeting, but also April meeting.
And maybe then we could have, a deadline for additional questions to be 1 week
Yes.
before the April board meeting so they can be ready.
Absolutely. That sounds good. Okay. Anything else? Are we ready to move this forward with those plans? Understood? Okay. So then let me get back to the agenda, if I can. Just a second. There we go. Next item won't take much time, but it's an update for all of us that we have not reviewed the performance of our executive director for some time. And I thought that, I don't know why I even thought about it, but it just popped into my head at one point that, hey, we're supposed to be doing this. And I just don't want Tom to think we're sliding along on this. And it wasn't anything positive or negative that he did. It's just something that actually popped into my mind. So he wrote a nice memo to let us know that the last time we did this was October 2018. So that's some considerable time. So I would like just to discuss with the executive committee how we should do this and when we should do this. Do you have any great ideas?
Well,
Penny?
since it's related to personnel, this would be not a public.
It would not be public.
It
And
would be an executive session, yes.
right. And I guess for me, and maybe I have it because like I said, I'm kind of doped up this today, but I would like to see a copy of Mr. McGlassen's job description. And also the changes that have occurred over that time period. I mean, we've seen several changes already with what's going on with our banking and with like the tire recycling program and all kinds of those kinds of things. I would like to see kind of a detailed list of those kinds of things if possible.
And also the personnel changes that we've made to the structure.
Which have been considerable. So
I've slept since we made a lot of those changes. I don't.
Only once.
It all seems normal now. But
so which just means that you have to go back to October 2018 and then read the whole set of minutes going forward.
Well, that was my question, that with the list of changes and stuff that we're going back to the most recent review, and that we don't want to go back farther than that.
Good
Okay.
Lord, that's far back enough. That's before Penny or I were on this board.
I know. So one of the ways we've done performance reviews would be not with the entire board unless they wish to participate. And my guess is that the board would say, oh, let's just give this to the executive committee to do. That's my guess. But let's ask the board what they want to do is what I would prefer. And we could ask for people who'd be interested to participate.
Yeah, I think a committee of 3 people would be good, but it doesn't have to be us 3. I think it would be great if
doesn't.
somebody else could step up.
It certainly doesn't, and we'll see what sort of volunteers we get. But if that doesn't work, it will be us 3 if we get no volunteers. So
Yeah, and then we could set a timeline for Tom to get what the information we asked for together, and then for us to review just whoever's on the committee to review things, and then we can set up a meeting.
Right. So those meetings are advertised or noticed, but they are not public meetings.
Yeah, same notice requirements, just no public in attendance.
Right. Okay. And I don't have any experience doing this over Zoom. I don't think anybody, I've not heard about this at all. Do either of you have any performance review experience except in person?
Well, I would just throw out in general that without knowing what's going to happen on Friday with the governor and an executive session, I would have to talk with Mr. Baker. We may not have an option but to meet in person.
I think so. I think so.
It probably can be hybrid, but it still requires at least 2 of the 3 executive board members or 2 of the 3 committee members, whatever it is, to be physically present.
Okay.
Yeah, do we have the Nat Hill room reserved for our next board meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We actually have the Nat U Hill room reserved for all CAC, executive committee and board meetings.
Good.
Oh,
we-
executive committee too?
That's the only way that's the only place I knew they were set up to do hybrid.
Oh, right, right.
So yeah, so we do have that.
Mhm.
The committee, shoot. The committee does have a conflict in September, I believe,
With budgeting.
well, no, we tried to circumvent the budget hearings and scheduled for a Friday, but the county doesn't do anything after 4 o'clock on Friday, and so we can't be in the Nat U Hill room.
Hmm.
So,
We could use a city space,
But good.
council chambers.
yeah, I mean, and we just have to identify, another location.
That can be Zoom.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see what happens. I'm assuming that the governor's going to let the order expire.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I kind of want to see what happens with that. And, do we need to find a place that has hybrid abilities? Do we just want to, have an in-person meeting for that one? There's a couple of things I wanted to kind of see how everything kind of fell into
Mhm.
place after the order expired, and then we can, we don't have to
Figure it out.
reschedule that meeting today. We just have to do it in time to properly notice it and all of that. So we have time.
Okay.
Yeah, city council chambers will be set up for hybrid as well, so.
Okay. Oh, city council chambers will,
Yeah,
because that's certainly much cozier than the Nat U Hill room.
I don't know if it's cozy, but
Not as big. And it's possible that the HR conference room might be usable. Penny, what do you know about that?
I think I saw them using some kind of equipment in there, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an owl.
I think it's an owl.
Well, I'll have to talk with
With Lee.
Dina in the commissioner's office, and I think Michelle at Tech Services. I mean, part of my understanding and coming away from Dina, it wasn't, it was that the courthouse would be closed.
Yeah.
And that there wouldn't be anybody from Tech Services to run the hybrid portion of the meeting after 4 o'clock on a Friday.
Right.
Okay.
So,
We do give them time off once a year. So, yeah.
but like I said, but we have time. I wanted to see how things shook out after the order expired, and then we can start to
Okay.
look at our options and figure out what's going to work. So,
Okay.
so do you want the performance review of the executive director? Do you want that as its own agenda item, or do you just want to bring that up under the all other items at the end of the meeting?
Oh, let's make it an agenda item so
Okay.
that everybody has that in front of them.
Okay.
And then they can start thinking of all their excuses why they don't want to participate.
You're being recorded here, Cheryl.
Oh, darn, I am. Okay. So number 8, a real, very nice agenda item. Appointment to the CAC. Tom, will you tell us about this?
Yeah, this is Brad Lucas, who's the Director of Building Operations with MCCSC. I think past couple of months I've told you I had spoken with MCCSC. Their Board of Trustees decided they did want to have representation on the CAC, and Mr. Lucas is the employee that got nominated to do that. And so you have his letter of interest for your consideration.
Yeah, great. So the only thing we need to do is to move this to the board. Is that correct, Tom? We don't
Yeah.
take, yeah,
Just, as long as there's a consensus to move that forward to the board, and I
Okay.
don't know, Mr. Wynia had any comments. I know that he's seen the letter as well.
Mhm. So Isabel,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this applicant doesn't seem to really have a full understanding of what the district does. He really was talking about keeping things clean and not our mission of reducing waste. So, I mean, I'm fine to moving forward. I'm glad the MCCSC is sending somebody, and
Mhm.
he can certainly learn more as he goes along. But I'm wondering if he is approved by the board, could we send along our 5-year plan when he's notified?
that was
Yeah, certainly. Yeah,
great homework.
yeah, we can, and conversely, I would say to that, maybe here's an opportunity with somebody that with an organization the size of MCCSC, here's an opportunity to not teach not just him or educate him, but the MCCSC as a whole on what the
Absolutely.
district does, where there might be opportunities for partnerships and so on.
It's
So,
really good.
Mr. Winnie has his hand up.
Mr. Winia,
Yes, thank you. I did just want to share that I also shared Ms. Piedmont Smith's sentiment in that it seemed like a bit of a disconnect in terms of the nature of the participation as a member of the CAC, but also shared Mr. McGlassen's remarks that even if that is the case, that still seems like an opportunity to be a connection between the two entities. And I personally was most interested in learning more about what oh my goodness, I always do this, MCCSC's intent or desire was in having this representation so that we can make the best use of this relationship and this opportunity. I don't know, Mr. McGlasson, if you have anything that you can mention to that right now, or if that's something that can be discussed with the board at the meeting.
Well, I don't know. I can tell you this started. I got called, and I can't think of the lady's name. From MCCSC administration, but she had called and the board was inquiring. Their board was under the impression that they had to have representation on the CAC, and then recognized that they didn't have anybody on the CAC. And I said, well, I'm not aware of any requirement, but I think that our board, would welcome, representation from MCCSC on the committee. And so that's what led us to this. I'd also add that, and I will see how this goes, because this is the first time we've dealt with somebody, and I do not know Mr. Lucas at all, but he's been told to seek appointment to the CAC. This was not something that organically generated within himself. So we'll see what happens.
okay. Well, I guess that will be, we'll see what comes out of that. And sounds like Mr. Lucas has a pretty steep learning curve ahead of him. So, well, let's move on to the next item, which is the joint meeting with the CAC. Mr. Winia, do you wish to speak on that?
I don't know if Mr. Winia knew that I was going to punt to him on that until he saw the agenda, but
I didn't, but I saw my name, so it was very clear. So also there is little to share or indicate. I'll put the link into the chat for the scheduling poll that I sent out,
Yeah.
but there was only responses from 4 members, and the responses only have one optimal option. So that is the best information I have at the time, and just wanted to check in to see if there was interest in another follow-up with the CAC to try to procure more responses. I delivered this poll by email and then referenced it in the subsequent CAC meeting last week, and I could follow up again, but given the communications that have already taken place, I don't expect a significant change in response, but I'm always willing to make an attempt to, especially if it's at the interest of this committee as a motivating factor or an additional point of interest for the CAC members to respond.
Isabel or Penny, do you want to react to that?
On looking at the poll, it looked like after the April board meeting, or at the end of the April board meeting, looked to be the optimal time. So I'm fine with that. I don't think it's going to change much, even if more individuals respond. So, and it gives people enough lead time.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go with that plan.
Yep. Very good.
Sorry.
So I think, but they can, other members can still be encouraged to come then.
Indeed, from the CAC's perspective, I would say that setting a time is just as well, and then as many members as are available will come, and I'll make
Yeah.
sure that they have ample time to be aware that they are able to attend the meeting.
Yeah, very good. And it could be an in-person meeting, but it could also be hybrid, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now our final item, as always, is other items appropriate for our committee to discuss. Does anybody have anything? Isabel?
Well, seeing as you only have 2 minutes, my question was about the oh my gosh, and now the name of it escapes me. The agreement we have with Republic.
Which one?
The what?
We have two.
Well,
The
big one.
host fee. The
host
host
fee.
fee.
Okay.
When does it expire, and do we have any sense that they might renew it?
The agreement that has the host fee expires in 2024, October, November timeframe, I believe, but I would want to pull the document to check the signature dates. At this time, with the Rumpke facility pending and some comments that have been made with regard to a proposed facility from Bedford Recycling, I'm inclined to say that Republic is probably not going to renew that. If not, find a way to get out of it before then.
Well, thank you for that honest feedback.
Mhm.
We definitely need to keep that in mind.
It's what percentage of our revenue is the host fee, Tom? Off the top of your head.
I mean, the host fee is roughly $250,000 a year. We had a 2.7 million budget this year. So
20%?
10.
10.
A bit under.
Oh, right. I can't do math in my head.
And that, I
No.
mean, it is something that I've looked at for a few years now. Just, before the Rumpke facility was on the radar, just because I knew that expiration date was out there. It's something that we're gonna have to crunch some numbers and look at, and what does it mean if we don't have that revenue coming in? But like we talk about at the end of every year, the district has a habit of reverting a substantial sum of appropriations every year. So,
Mhm.
a $250,000 sounds like a big bite, but I think if we crunch
We have
some
a big
numbers,
bite.
it's not going to hit as hard as it sounds like it might.
Well, especially if
Right.
we have somebody else in there, that would pay something.
Right.
It's not going to all completely go away. That's what I'm saying.
Good.
Well,
So-
I don't know if between Rumpke and Republic, if one's not paying, I don't know why the other would.
That's the problem. But if we could get Rumpke on board before this expiration comes up,
Well, we
that would
have
be
to.
good.
We have to. If we don't have an agreement in place with Rumpke by the time they open their doors, then we are in violation of the agreement with Republic.
Okay.
All right, well, I guess that's, no, the language isn't quite that harsh, but if we don't have an agreement in place when Rumpke opens their doors, then that in essence gives Republic an opt-out on the agreement.
Right.
I'm really
You
sorry, I have to jump off.
Yep,
We
Yeah.
we
we
have to
should.
get on.
Can you put
We
this on
should.
as an agenda item for our next EC meeting, Tom?
Mhm.
Yeah, and Angela Parker and I have been working on what a host fee agreement with Rumpke would look like. So it's, we're moving forward on having something for them.
Which
And
is good.
they've indicated way long ago that they're agreeable to entering into a host fee agreement. So
Right. So, and just to fill Isabel in, planning is, Republic Services has been speaking at planning about Rumpke, et cetera. And not Rumpke, about Bedford recycling and confusing county officials.
Great.
So
Yes,
that is
it's-
another thing that should come up at our next meeting, Tom, if we need an update on Bedford.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
okay, well, while we were here, I have a meeting now. I've scheduled a meeting for tomorrow afternoon with planning and Dave Schilling to discuss the Bedford recycling. So,
And to straighten them all out. Very good.
yeah, I think that's a follow-up, some of the discussion that happened at the last commissioners meeting regarding.
Yeah. So, okay. Just tell Isabel very quickly. Republic Services was saying that Bedford Recycling was a transfer station. Proposal.
Yeah, Bedford Recycling is a scrap metal dealer.
Yeah,
They would be comparable to JB Salvage or Bloomington Iron and Metal. They're wanting to put a scrap metal facility in down on Dillman Road, right across from the water treatment plant.
Who, Republic?
No, Bedford
Bedford.
Recycling. Yeah.
Oh,
Now, and Republic is opposed to it.
mm.
At a planned commission meeting, where there's some zoning stuff that has to be revised if it were to happen. But talking about the facility, the term transfer station started getting tossed around, and waste. And that's not what this is. It's a scrap metal facility, and the state defines it differently. This metal is viewed more as a commodity because I buy it coming in and sell it going out versus trash and recycling that. And so, but the terms transfer station and waste were used, and Republic jumped all over that and said, well, if you do that, then the district's in violation of the host fee. And so nobody's yet been able to explain to me how somebody who's not party to an agreement can take an action that violates that agreement. But I don't know, but that's the threat. And I can say it because they've said it at a public meeting that they're dangling the host fee as leverage to get the county to not allow this facility to happen. And there's certainly, like I said, there's some zoning things that have to be resolved, and it's I honestly don't know, the district and its host fee aside, whether the facility will get approved or not. But we've gotten drawn into that because Republic has thrown the host fee out there, dangled that at some of the meetings with the Plan Commission and the commissioners.
Yes, so we have to clearly correct the record and say this is not a transfer facility.
yeah.
Well, and that was, I tried to do that some at the commissioners meeting last week, and kind of reference some of the state statutes where things are defined, and but I've also had some discussions with representatives from Republic, and it sounds like that's the stance they're going to take, and it may wind up having to be determined by a judge. I don't know. I at this point, I don't know if those are empty threats or not, but can't ignore them since they've been thrown out there.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
All
I'm gonna
right,
run, I'm gonna run to the other meeting and thank everybody for meeting today.
Yeah.
Sorry I had to jump in a little late. Thank you, Isabel, for starting everything, and you certainly could have just continued on. So we'll hear more about Bedford next meeting.
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
We're adjourned. Bye.
Bye.